What if I told you that you don't need a new job, a new relationship, or a new year to change your life? What if I told you that all it takes is 7 minutes a day, not 7 hours, not a perfect morning routine, not some dramatic overnight transformation, just 7 intentional minutes every single day? Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Your life doesn't change in big moments. It changes in small decisions repeated consistently. And today, I want to show you how 7 minutes a day can completely change the direction of your life. Let's start with something important. Most people believe that real change requires massive effort, huge blocks of time, or a complete overhaul of their life. They think transformation only happens when everything is perfectly aligned, when they have more time, more energy, more money, or fewer responsibilities. But that belief is exactly what keeps so many people stuck. The truth is, big change doesn't come from big moments. It comes from small decisions, repeated consistently over time. You don't need to flip your life upside down to move forward. You just need to start small and stay consistent. Think about how most people spend their days. Hours disappear into scrolling, worrying, overthinking, and reacting to everything around them. Yet when it comes to improving their life, they say they don't have time. It's not that time doesn't exist. It's that it's being used without intention. Real change begins the moment you stop waiting for someday and start using the time you already have. Even a few minutes, when used with purpose, can begin to shift the direction of your life. Small actions may feel insignificant in the moment, but they compound in powerful ways. Just like saving a little money, every day eventually adds up. Or eating slightly better over time changes your health. Tiny daily habits shape who you become. One thoughtful decision today makes the next good decision easier tomorrow. Over time, those small choices build confidence, discipline, and self-trust. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who shows up, someone capable of growth. The reason small commitments work is because they lower resistance. Your mind doesn't fight 7 minutes the way it fights an hour. It doesn't feel overwhelming or intimidating. It feels doable, and when something feels doable, you're more likely to start. And starting is where everything changes. Momentum doesn't come from perfection. It comes from participation. Showing up, even briefly, sends a powerful message to yourself that your life matters enough to invest in daily. Consistency matters more than intensity. One intense day followed by weeks of inaction won't change anything, but small, repeated efforts reshape your mindset and behavior over time. Each day becomes a vote for the person you want to become. And slowly, almost quietly, your habits begin to align with your goals. You stop chasing motivation and start relying on routine. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to show up. When you focus on small daily actions, you also remove the pressure to be perfect. You allow yourself to grow without self-judgment. Miss a day. You don't quit, you return. Progress becomes flexible, human, and sustainable. This approach builds resilience because it teaches you that success isn't about never failing, it's about never stopping. Big change doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive all at once. It builds quietly in the background of your daily life. One small decision leads to another, and then another, until one day you look back and realize you're no longer the same person. Not because you had more time, but because you finally used the time you already had with intention. We live in a world that is constantly speaking to us. Notifications, messages, opinions, news, expectations, and endless information compete for our attention from the moment we wake up. Over time, this constant noise becomes so normal that we stop noticing how much it affects us. Our minds stay busy even when our bodies are still. We think about the past, worry about the future, and react to everything in between. In that state, It becomes almost impossible to think clearly or make intentional choices. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of distraction. When you allow yourself even a short moment of quiet, you create space for your mind to slow down. At first, silence can feel uncomfortable. Thoughts you've been avoiding may surface. Emotions you've been pushing away might show up. But that discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you are finally listening. Clarity begins the moment you stop drowning out your own thoughts. In silence, you start to notice what's really going on inside you. You become aware of your emotional state instead of reacting automatically. You begin to recognize whether you're acting out of fear, stress habit, or genuine intention. Most people move through life on autopilot, making decisions based on urgency instead of importance. Silence interrupts that pattern. It creates a pause between stimulus and response, and in that pause, you regain control. Clarity doesn't arrive as a sudden revelation. It comes in small realizations. You notice that something is draining you. You realize a certain habit no longer serves you. You recognize a desire you've been ignoring. These insights are easy to miss when life is loud, but in quiet moments, they become obvious. Silence helps you hear your inner voice again, the one that knows what you need, what matters, and what direction feels right. Silence also reduces mental clutter. When your mind is overloaded, even simple decisions feel exhausting. Everything feels urgent, and nothing feels clear. Quiet moments allow your brain to process, organize, and reset. Stress levels drop. Focus improves. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding thoughtfully. Over time, this changes the way you experience daily life. You become calmer, more present, and more grounded. Many people avoid silence because they fear what they might find there. But avoiding silence doesn't make problems disappear. It just keeps them hidden. When you create a daily habit of quiet reflection, you face your thoughts in manageable doses instead of letting them build up. This makes challenges feel less overwhelming and solutions more accessible. What once felt confusing begins to make sense. Silence also strengthens self-trust. When you regularly check in with yourself, you stop relying solely on external validation and opinions. You become more confident in your choices because they come from clarity rather than pressure. You learn to distinguish between what others expect from you and what you truly want. This alignment brings peace and direction. Over time, even a minute of silence each day changes how you move through the world. You listen more. You react less. You make decisions that align with your values instead of your stress. Clarity becomes a natural byproduct of stillness. In a world that never stops talking, choosing silence is not weakness, it is power. Most people move through life without ever truly checking in with themselves. Days blur together, routines repeat, and actions happen automatically. When something feels off, it's often ignored or pushed aside because life feels too busy to stop and think. But growth cannot happen without awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see, and you cannot improve what you never examine. Awareness is not about self-criticism. It is about understanding yourself with honesty. When you take time to reflect, you begin to notice patterns that were previously invisible. You start to see what consistently drains your energy and what gives it back. You recognize situations that trigger stress, frustration, or self-doubt. Without awareness, these patterns silently control your behavior. With awareness, they become choices. Reflection turns unconscious reactions into conscious decisions, and that shift is where real growth begins. Many people avoid reflection because they associate it with regret or guilt. They fear confronting mistakes or acknowledging areas where they've fallen short. But reflection is not about judging the past, it's about learning from it. Every experience, good or bad, contains information. When you pause to ask what went wrong, what went right, and why, you extract value from your experiences instead of repeating them. This transforms failure into feedback and confusion into clarity. Awareness also helps you understand your emotional landscape. Instead of labeling feelings as good or bad, you learn to recognize them as signals. Stress may be pointing to misalignment. Boredom may be revealing untapped potential. Frustration may be highlighting boundaries that need to be set. When you become aware of these signals, emotions stop controlling you and start guiding you. You move from reacting emotionally to responding intelligently. Daily reflection doesn't need to be complicated or time-consuming. Even a few honest questions can shift your perspective. Asking yourself what challenged you today, what you learned, or what you would do differently next time creates momentum. Over time, these small moments of awareness add up. You begin to notice progress. You see growth happening in real time. This reinforces confidence and motivation because you can see evidence of change instead of guessing whether you're moving forward. Awareness also strengthens responsibility. When you reflect regularly, you stop blaming circumstances or other people for everything that happens in your life. You begin to see where your choices play a role. This isn't about taking on unnecessary guilt. It's about reclaiming control. Responsibility is empowering because it means you have the ability to influence your future. The more aware you become, the more intentional your actions are. Another powerful result of awareness is alignment. When you understand your values, priorities, and limits, you make decisions that feel right instead of rushed. You stop saying yes out of obligation and start saying yes with intention. Life becomes less about keeping up and more about living in a way that reflects who you truly are. This alignment reduces inner conflict and increases peace of mind. Reflection also helps you recognize growth that would otherwise go unnoticed. Progress is often subtle. Without awareness, you may overlook how far you've come and focus only on how far you still want to go. Taking time to reflect allows you to acknowledge effort, resilience, and improvement. This builds self-respect and patience, both of which are essential for long-term change. When awareness becomes a daily habit, growth becomes inevitable. You stop living on autopilot and start living with purpose. Each reflection sharpens your understanding, strengthens your choices, and brings you closer to the person you are becoming. Growth is not accidental. It begins the moment you choose to pay attention. Many people set goals hoping those goals will change their lives. They write down what they want to achieve, what they want to have, or where they want to be in the future. But goals alone rarely create lasting change. The reason is simple: behavior doesn't come from goals, it comes from identity. What you consistently do is a reflection of who you believe you are. Until that belief shifts, progress will always feel forced and temporary. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When you act with discipline, you reinforce the identity of someone who is disciplined. When you follow through on commitments, you strengthen the identity of someone who can be trusted. Over time, these small acts shape self-image. This is why lasting change happens when behavior aligns with identity, not when it relies on motivation or willpower alone. Many people try to change their lives by chasing outcomes. They say they want to be healthier, more confident, more successful, but they focus only on the result, not the person required to achieve it. Identity-based change flips that approach. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" you ask, "Who do I want to become?" That question shifts your focus from distant results to present behavior. You start acting like the person you want to be, even before you feel like it. This shift removes pressure. You no longer need to transform overnight or prove anything immediately. You simply show up as the person you're becoming, one small action at a time. A confident person speaks up even when nervous. A disciplined person follows through even when tired. A focused person protects their time even when distractions are tempting. These actions may seem small, but repeated daily, they redefine who you are. Identity shapes habits, and habits shape outcomes. When your actions are aligned with your identity, consistency becomes easier. You're no longer fighting yourself. Instead of relying on motivation, you rely on self-concept. You don't ask whether you feel like doing something. You do it because it's who you are. This creates stability and progress and reduces the emotional ups and downs that derail so many people. Identity-based change also builds self-trust. Each time you act in alignment with the person you want to become, you send yourself a powerful message: you are capable. Over time, this trust compounds. You begin to believe in your ability to handle challenges, adapt, and grow. Confidence becomes a byproduct of evidence, not positive thinking. This approach also allows room for imperfection. Identity is not destroyed by a single mistake. Missing a day or falling short does not define you. What matters is the pattern you return to. When identity is the foundation, setbacks become temporary, not personal. You don't quit because you don't see yourself as someone who gives up. You simply adjust and continue. When you choose identity over outcomes, your decisions become clearer. You begin to ask, what would the person I want to be do in this situation? That question cuts through excuses and distractions. It simplifies choices and strengthens discipline. Over time, those decisions create a life that feels aligned and intentional rather than forced and exhausting. True transformation happens quietly. It happens when you consistently act in ways that reflect who you want to become, even when no one is watching. Identity shapes behavior, behavior shapes habits, and habits shape your life. When you change who you believe you are, everything else follows. Many people underestimate the power of gratitude because they confuse it with being satisfied or settling. They think that appreciating what they have means giving up on wanting more. In reality, gratitude does the opposite. It strengthens your mindset, sharpens your focus, and gives you the emotional stability needed to keep moving forward. Gratitude is not about ignoring problems. It's about changing the way you see your life while you work through them. The human mind naturally pays more attention to what is missing than to what is present. This survival-based tendency keeps people stuck in a constant state of dissatisfaction. No matter how much progress they make, it never feels like enough. Gratitude interrupts this pattern. When you consciously acknowledge what is already working, your brain begins to register safety instead of threat. This shift reduces stress and creates mental space for growth and creativity. Gratitude changes how you experience challenges. When you focus only on obstacles, every setback feels like proof that you're failing. But when gratitude is part of your daily mindset, challenges feel more manageable. You begin to see them as temporary and solvable rather than permanent and overwhelming. This perspective builds resilience. Instead of giving up at the first sign of difficulty, you're more likely to adapt and continue. Practicing gratitude also strengthens motivation. When you recognize progress, even small progress, you reinforce the desire to keep going. Many people quit not because they can't succeed, but because they don't see evidence that they're improving. Gratitude highlights that evidence. It reminds you how far you've come, how much you've learned, and how capable you already are. This sense of progress fuels persistence. Gratitude improves emotional regulation. When emotions run high, it's easy to react impulsively or negatively. Gratitude creates a grounding effect. It brings you back to the present moment and helps you respond with clarity rather than frustration. Over time, this leads to better decision-making and healthier relationships. You become less reactive and more intentional in how you communicate and act. Another powerful aspect of gratitude is how it reshapes identity. When you regularly acknowledge the good in your life, you begin to see yourself as someone who is supported, capable, and resourceful. This self-perception matters. People who feel supported are more likely to take risks, pursue growth, and believe in their ability to overcome obstacles. Gratitude strengthens that internal foundation. Gratitude also improves consistency. When you appreciate the opportunity to work on yourself, rather than viewing it as a burden, effort feels lighter. Discipline becomes an act of self-respect instead of self-punishment. You stop asking why things are so hard and start recognizing the privilege of being able to try. This mindset makes long-term effort sustainable. It's important to understand that gratitude doesn't require perfect circumstances. You don't wait until life improves to practice it. You practice it so life can improve. Even in difficult moments, there is something to acknowledge, a lesson learned, strength gained, or support received. These small acknowledgments build emotional endurance over time. When gratitude becomes a daily habit, your mindset shifts from scarcity to abundance. You stop feeling like life is constantly taking from you and start recognizing what it's giving. This shift doesn't eliminate challenges, but it changes how you face them. Gratitude doesn't make you passive, it makes you stronger, more focused, and more resilient. And from that mindset, real and lasting change becomes possible. Many people wait for motivation to arrive before taking action, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather, unpredictable and often short-lived. Relying on motivation alone is one of the biggest obstacles to lasting change. Real transformation doesn't come from waiting to feel inspired. It comes from showing up consistently, even when you don't feel like it. Consistency, not fleeting emotion, is what creates results over time. The problem with motivation is that it depends on external circumstances. A good day, a compliment, or a burst of energy can give you a push. But what happens when the day is hard, the energy is low, or the circumstances aren't ideal? If you've relied on motivation, progress stops. The people who change their lives are those who act regardless of feelings. They create a system that does not rely on mood, willpower, or chance. Consistency builds momentum. When you take action every day, even in small ways, your brain starts to expect that behavior. Your habits solidify, and what once felt difficult becomes natural. Momentum works like compounding interest. One day of action doesn't seem like much, but repeated daily, those actions accumulate into significant results. This is why a single minute, repeated every day, can eventually change your life. Motivation may get you started, but consistency keeps you moving forward. Consistency also strengthens self-trust. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you send a message to yourself. I am reliable. I can handle responsibility. I can keep going even when it's hard. Over time, this trust compounds. You begin to believe in your ability to follow through, not just when it's convenient, but as a matter of principle. Motivation comes and goes, but self-trust lasts. Another benefit of consistent action is resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. If your actions depend solely on motivation, setbacks can derail you completely. But if your practice is consistent, setbacks become temporary pauses rather than complete stops. You develop the ability to adapt, recover, and continue moving toward your goals. Consistency creates a foundation that withstands obstacles, rather than collapsing under pressure. Many people underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. They think change requires grand gestures, long hours, or dramatic effort. In reality, small, daily actions create habits that define your future. A 5-minute habit today becomes 10 minutes tomorrow, and 10 minutes leads to an hour over weeks and months. Change doesn't happen overnight, but consistency ensures it happens steadily. The key is not to wait for perfection, but to start and persist. Consistency also simplifies decision-making. When showing up becomes a habit, you don't debate whether you feel like it or not. You don't rely on willpower in the moment. You simply act because it is part of your routine. This removes friction and excuses from your path. You stop negotiating with yourself, and your energy can focus on doing the work rather than convincing yourself to start. Finally, consistency creates results that motivate themselves. Action breeds confidence, which encourages more action. As you see progress from your daily efforts, your desire to continue grows. You no longer need to wait for external motivation because your results provide proof that what you are doing works. Consistency creates a positive feedback loop. Small, repeated efforts lead to visible outcomes, which fuel further consistent action. True transformation is not about rare moments of inspiration. It's about daily decisions repeated over time, regardless of mood, energy, or circumstance. Motivation is fleeting. Consistency is permanent. When you commit to showing up every day, even in the smallest way, you create a system that guarantees growth, resilience, and success. One small step, repeated faithfully, can completely change your life.